The night is quiet over the Nile. The air has finally begun to cool after another long day beneath the bright Egyptian sun. A gentle breeze moves across the dark water, carrying the soft smell of wet reeds, damp earth, and distant cooking fires that have almost burned themselves into glowing beds of red ash. The river moves without hurry, just as it has for countless generations, slipping past fields, villages, and silent stretches of sand beneath a sky crowded with patient stars. Somewhere along its banks, a dog lifts its head for a moment before settling back onto the cool ground. A donkey shifts its weight in its sleep. Palm leaves whisper gently together whenever the wind finds them. Beyond the fields, mud-brick homes rest in darkness, their flat roofs still holding a little warmth from the day. Most of the village is asleep now. Only the river remains awake. It watches over everyone without asking for thanks. It carries water to the thirsty fields, fish to waiting nets, boats to distant villages, and stories that no one can quite remember from where they first began. Tonight, you may imagine yourself beside that river. There is nowhere you must hurry. There is nothing expected of you. The work of today has already been finished, and tomorrow is still resting somewhere beyond the horizon. For now, there is only the quiet sound of moving water and the slow breathing of a world that has settled into peaceful darkness. As your thoughts become lighter, you begin walking along a narrow path beside the Nile. The ground beneath your sandals is firm where many feet have traveled before. Dust clings softly to your ankles. Here and there, smooth stones press gently against the worn leather beneath your feet. The moon casts pale light across the river, turning small ripples into long bands of silver. The reeds sway almost silently. Frogs call from hidden places along the shore. Somewhere far away, an owl lets out a single low note before disappearing again into the stillness. This land has known mornings beyond counting. Long before great monuments rose above the desert, before scribes filled rolls of papyrus with careful writing, before merchants carried fine cloth and polished jars between busy towns, ordinary people walked these same riverbanks. Most of them left no names behind. History remembers kings because their names were carved into stone. It remembers temples because they reached toward the sky. But the river remembers something quieter. It remembers footsteps. It remembers hands that gathered reeds, lifted baskets, repaired fishing nets, kneaded bread, shaped clay, and carried bundles of firewood home before sunset. These were the hands that filled the long days of ancient Egypt. Without them, ovens would have grown cold. Bread would not have baked. Water would not have boiled. Pottery would never have hardened inside smoking kilns. Copper would not have glowed beneath careful fires. Evening meals would have remained uncooked. Fire touched almost every corner of daily life. Yet fire itself was only the final gift. Before every warm loaf of bread and every cooked meal, someone first had to walk beneath the open sky and search for wood. That work began long before sunrise. Even now, while the stars still shine above the river, one family sleeps lightly inside a small mud brick home. Their walls are thick enough to soften the heat that gathered through the afternoon. The floor is packed earth, cool beneath woven reed mats. A clay jar rests near the doorway. A simple oil lamp has long since gone dark. The family owns very little. A few baskets. Several clay bowls. Grinding stones for grain. Bundles of woven reeds. A wooden stool carefully repaired many times over. Everything has its place because everything has value. Even broken things often receive another chance. The father sleeps nearest the doorway. Years of lifting baskets and carrying heavy loads have made his shoulders broad and his hands rough. Small scars cross his fingers, each one earned so long ago that he no longer notices them. Beside him rests his wife, whose days begin before the first birds begin singing. Tomorrow she will grind grain, shape dough, carry water, watch the cooking fire, mend clothing, and care for children whose endless curiosity brightens even the hottest afternoons. Nearby, two children sleep beneath a simple woven covering. Their dreams are peaceful. Soon enough they too will learn the rhythm of the village. They will learn when to rise, when to plant, when to harvest, when to rest beneath the smallest patch of shade, and when to gather wood before the household fire grows low. No loud bell announces morning here. Instead, the darkness slowly changes. The eastern sky becomes just a little less black. Stars nearest the horizon quietly disappear. Birds begin speaking to one another in soft calls. Somewhere, another family opens a wooden door with a gentle scrape. The village is waking. The father opens his eyes before the sun appears. For a few moments he simply listens. The river. The breeze. Someone sweeping dust from a doorway. A donkey shaking its head. The faint sound of grain already being ground between heavy stones. Morning has begun. He rises slowly. His knees complain for only a moment before settling into familiar movement. He wraps a simple linen garment around himself and steps outside into the cool air. This hour is precious. It is the coolest part of the day, when work feels almost gentle. The sky continues growing lighter. Across the village, thin trails of smoke begin rising one by one as yesterday's coals are coaxed back to life with dry grass and careful breath. Every household watches its supply of firewood carefully. Wood is never treated carelessly. Egypt is rich with fertile soil beside the Nile, but forests are rare. Trees grow along canals, around villages, and in scattered groves, yet fallen branches cannot always be found nearby. Many families must travel each day to gather enough dry wood for cooking. Some search along riverbanks. Others collect dead palm fronds. Some gather dried reeds. Nothing useful is ignored. Even the smallest stick may help warm an evening meal. The father reaches for a woven rope basket hanging beneath the roof overhang. Its handles have been repaired many times with twisted plant fiber. Years of use have polished the edges smooth beneath countless hands. Today, like so many days before it, he will follow the river. The path leading from the village already holds other travelers. A woman balances empty water jars across her shoulders. Two boys carry fishing nets still damp from yesterday's catch. An older man walks with a bundle of woven traps, hoping the morning will be kind. No one speaks very loudly. Voices remain soft, as though everyone wishes to preserve the peaceful quiet that belongs to dawn. The Nile reflects the growing light. Mist floats above parts of the water, thin enough that the opposite shore appears and disappears as though drifting through a dream. Small boats rock gently against simple wooden stakes driven into the muddy bank. A fisherman unties his rope. His movements are practiced and unhurried. He has done this almost every morning since childhood. His father once stood in exactly the same place. Perhaps his grandfather did as well. The river has watched them all. As the wood gatherer continues walking, he notices familiar places along the shoreline. A bent acacia tree where birds often gather. A cluster of reeds where ducks hide their nests. A smooth stone worn by years of people sitting quietly beside the water. Nothing here is grand. Nothing seeks attention. Yet together these small places create the landscape of an ordinary life. The path narrows. Sand mixes with darker soil left behind by the river's gentle floods. Tiny footprints cross the ground. Some belong to children. Others belong to goats wandering freely before the village fully wakes. Ahead, another family is already collecting fallen branches. No one competes. Everyone understands that the river provides enough if each person takes only what is needed. The older woman among them bends carefully to lift a dry limb no thicker than her wrist. She studies it for a moment, brushes away loose bark, then places it gently into her basket. Her granddaughter copies every movement with great care. Learning begins by watching. No one rushes the lesson. The morning sun has not yet cleared the horizon, and already another generation is quietly discovering how ancient routines pass from one pair of hands to another. The little girl reaches for a branch that has fallen among the reeds. It is lighter than she expected, and she smiles quietly to herself as she lifts it with both hands. Her grandmother watches without speaking. There is no need for many words this early in the morning. The lesson is carried by patient eyes and slow movements. The branch is dry enough to burn well. It makes a faint sound as it settles into the woven basket. That small sound joins many others that belong to the river at dawn. A bird calls from high in a date palm. Water brushes softly against the muddy bank. Somewhere farther away, a boatman taps the side of his small boat as he prepares to push away from shore. The sun finally begins to rise. Its first light spreads gently across the eastern sky, turning deep blue into pale gold. Shadows stretch long across the ground. The air is still cool enough that every breath feels easy. Before long, the heat will settle over the valley, and every step will ask a little more from tired legs. For now, the morning is generous. The man continues along the shoreline, following a path that curves around a quiet inlet where reeds grow thick and green. He has walked this way so many times that he hardly needs to think about where to place his feet. The ground changes from firm earth to soft sand and back again. His sandals leave faint prints that the breeze may erase before evening. He pauses beneath an acacia tree. Its branches spread outward like careful hands. Not every limb is useful. Fresh green wood is left untouched whenever possible. Dry branches that have already fallen are the true prize. They burn more easily, and gathering them does not harm the living tree. He bends slowly, picking up one branch after another. Some are no longer than his forearm. Others require both hands. Each piece is examined before it joins the growing bundle. Wood that has become soft with moisture is left behind. Thin twigs are tucked carefully between larger pieces so they will not fall through the basket. There is a quiet satisfaction in watching the basket slowly fill. No one expects it to happen quickly. The work itself asks for patience. Nearby, another gatherer kneels beside a patch of dry reeds left behind after the river's waters withdrew many weeks before. The stalks have turned the color of pale straw. They are cut close to the ground with a simple knife and tied together with twisted fibers. These bundles will help start the morning fire before thicker wood begins to burn. Nothing is wasted. The smallest dry stem has its purpose. Even bits of bark may help catch a spark. Across the river, the sunlight reaches the fields. Green patches of barley and emmer wheat begin to glow softly beneath the new day. Irrigation channels shine like ribbons of polished bronze. Farmers are already moving between them, carrying wooden tools across their shoulders. They walk without hurry. There are many hours ahead. The fields have their own rhythm, just as the river does. A pair of oxen stand quietly while a young boy brushes flies away with a bundle of reeds. The animals blink slowly, almost lazily, enjoying the cool morning before the day grows warm. Their steady strength will soon pull plows through damp soil, but for a little while longer they simply stand together in silence. The man looks toward them only briefly before returning his attention to the ground beneath the trees. Finding firewood requires careful eyes. Dry branches often hide beneath grasses or fallen leaves carried by the wind. Sometimes driftwood becomes caught among reeds after the river rises. A twisted root washed free from distant soil may become tomorrow's cooking fire. The Nile gives many gifts. Some are large enough to fill boats. Others fit easily into a single hand. A breeze travels along the water. It carries the scent of wet mud, growing plants, and distant bread already baking inside clay ovens. That smell reaches the wood gatherers long before they return home. Fresh bread is one of the first promises of morning. In one nearby village, women are already kneeling beside grinding stones. The work begins before sunrise nearly every day. Grain is poured carefully onto the flat stone. Another stone is pushed back and forth with practiced rhythm. Tiny particles of flour gather slowly beneath steady hands. The movement is repeated countless times. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. It is slow work, but familiar work rarely feels hurried. Children sometimes wake to this gentle sound. Before they open their eyes, they already know that morning has arrived because the steady scraping of stone against grain has begun. Soon the flour will be mixed with water. A little salt may be added if it is available. The dough is shaped with patient fingers and placed inside warm ovens whose fires depend entirely upon yesterday's search for dry wood. Every loaf begins long before the first spark. The man smiles quietly as he notices a thick fallen branch partly hidden beneath tall grasses. It will burn for a long time. He kneels carefully, brushing away loose sand before lifting it free. Fine dust rises into the sunlight, floating for a few moments before disappearing into the warm air. His basket grows heavier. The woven straps press more firmly against his shoulder. The weight is welcome. It means less searching later. Farther along the bank, two fishermen pull their boat onto damp sand. Their nets hang loosely over one side, still dripping into the river. Small silver fish flash briefly as they are sorted into baskets lined with reeds. One fisherman pauses to stretch his back. His companion laughs softly at something neither of them feels the need to explain. The sound is gentle and brief before both men return to their work. Morning conversations are often like that. Simple. Unhurried. The river carries their voices away almost as soon as they are spoken. As the sun climbs higher, more people appear along the shoreline. A potter searches for smooth clay where the water has recently receded. He presses his fingers into the earth, testing its softness before cutting away careful blocks that will later become bowls, jars, and lamps. A young mother washes linen at the edge of the water. Each piece of cloth is dipped, rubbed, and rinsed before being spread across low bushes to dry beneath the growing sunlight. Nearby, an elderly man sits upon a smooth stone with a woven basket resting beside him. His hands are busy repairing a fishing net that has served him through many seasons. The fibers move between his fingers almost without thought. Each knot is tied with quiet certainty, the kind that comes only after years of repeating the same careful task. No one watches him. There is no audience. Yet every knot is made well. Good work is often done in silence. The wood gatherer continues deeper along the riverbank where fewer footsteps disturb the sand. Birds scatter gently as he approaches, lifting together into the brightening sky before settling again a short distance away. The morning has become warmer now. The cool breeze remains, though it grows softer with every passing hour. Sunlight reaches the tops of the reeds first, then slowly works its way downward until even the damp earth beside the water begins to warm beneath its touch. The basket is nearly full. Still, the man walks a little farther. He knows that another dry branch found today is one less to search for tomorrow. Ancient life often rewards small preparations. A little extra grain stored away. A water jar filled before sunset. A few more pieces of firewood gathered while strength remains. These quiet choices make difficult days a little easier. He stops once more beneath another tree whose roots grip the riverbank firmly. Above him, leaves rustle with a sound so soft that it almost blends into the whisper of the water itself. For a few moments, he simply stands there. Not because he is tired. Not because he has forgotten his task. He stands because the morning is peaceful. The Nile flows beside him exactly as it did yesterday, and exactly as it will tomorrow. Boats drift slowly upon its surface. White birds glide low over the water before disappearing beyond the reeds. The breeze carries another faint scent of warm bread from villages beginning their day. He takes one slow breath. Then another. The basket rests comfortably against his back. Around him, the ordinary life of ancient Egypt continues with quiet purpose, carried forward one careful step at a time beneath the patient light of the rising sun. He adjusts the woven strap across his shoulder and begins the slow walk back toward the village. The basket is comfortably full now. Each dry branch rests against the next, fitting together as though they had always belonged in the same bundle. They will become warm cooking fires, glowing coals, and gentle evening light before many days have passed. The path follows a gentle bend in the river. Morning has fully arrived, though it still carries a softness that will disappear before midday. The sun rises a little higher with every passing moment, spreading warm light across the broad valley. The shadows of palm trees become shorter. The mist that floated over the water has almost completely faded, leaving the river bright and clear beneath the open sky. Along the bank, the day's work quietly unfolds. A young fisherman kneels beside his boat, untangling a section of net that caught on a submerged branch during the night. He works with steady fingers, lifting each strand carefully so that none of the fine fibers break. Beside him lies a small basket lined with damp reeds. Several fish rest inside, their silver scales catching little flashes of sunlight whenever the basket shifts. He is in no hurry. The river has taught him that rushing often creates more work than patience ever does. Not far away, an older woman gathers broad leaves from plants growing near the edge of the water. Some will wrap food. Others will shade fresh dough while it rises before baking. Every useful plant has been known by the families of the Nile for generations. Knowledge passes quietly from grandparents to parents, from parents to children, carried not by written words but by repeated mornings just like this one. The man carrying the firewood passes them with a small nod. They return the greeting. Nothing more is needed. Many neighbors understand one another through simple gestures. They have shared countless seasons together. They know who planted early, who harvested late, whose roof needed repairing after heavy rain, whose children have begun helping with the household work. Daily life ties every family together as securely as the woven fibers of a basket. As the village comes into view, smoke rises gently from dozens of cooking fires. Each thin column curls upward before disappearing into the bright sky. The smell grows stronger now. Fresh bread. Warm grain. Roasting onions. Crushed herbs. The rich scent of clay oven slowly heating for another day's baking. The aroma drifts through narrow lanes between mud-brick homes, mixing with the earthy smell of damp clay walls still holding a trace of coolness from the night. A little boy sits outside one doorway with a handful of smooth stones. He carefully arranges them into neat rows. Then he gathers them together again. There is no game to win. only the quiet pleasure of arranging and rearranging the little collection. His mother glances toward him while kneading dough inside a wide clay bowl. Her hands move with practiced rhythm. Press. Fold. Turn. Press again. The dough slowly becomes smooth beneath her palms. Fine flour dust clings to her fingers and wrists. A few loose strands of dark hair have slipped free beneath her linen head covering. She pauses only long enough to brush them gently aside before returning to her work. Nearby, another woman tends the household fire. She begins with yesterday's glowing coals, hidden beneath a layer of pale ash that protected their warmth through the night. With a careful stick, she uncovers the faint red glow still resting deep within the ashes. A small bundle of dried reeds is laid gently across the coals. She bends close. One slow breath. Then another. A thin ribbon of smoke rises. Moments later, a tiny orange flame appears. She waits patiently before adding several slender twigs. Only after those begin burning does she place thicker pieces of wood across the growing fire. Nothing is rushed. A fire built slowly often burns longer. The man arrives at his own home just as his wife finishes grinding the morning grain. The heavy grinding stone rests beside a growing mound of pale flour. Fine lines of dust cover her hands almost to the wrists. She smiles softly as she notices the full basket. Without speaking, she understands that the morning has gone well. Together they unload the wood. Long branches are stacked neatly beneath the shade of the roof where they will remain dry. Smaller sticks are sorted into another pile. The reeds are placed carefully nearby. Even this simple task follows habits learned over many years. Good wood for long cooking. Small wood for quick heating. Dry reeds for starting the fire. Everything has its place. Their youngest child wanders over, still rubbing sleep from tired eyes. He crouches beside the pile, reaching toward one particularly crooked branch. "It looks like a bird," he whispers. His father kneels beside him. For a moment, the branch does seem to resemble folded wings. The man smiles. It does. The child studies it a little longer before carefully placing it back onto the pile. Soon enough, it too will become part of the cooking fire. Small moments like these rarely appear in carved temple walls or royal records. No scribe pauses to write about a child imagining shapes inside a piece of driftwood. Yet such quiet moments filled ancient Egypt every day. The village itself is built from ordinary lives. Every loaf baked. Every jar carried. Every sandal repaired. Every bundle of reeds gathered before sunset. These simple acts quietly support everything else. As the morning grows warmer, more sounds drip through the narrow lanes. A donkey pulls a small wooden cart loaded with clay jars. Its slow footsteps create gentle clouds of dust that settle almost immediately. The driver walks beside the animal rather than riding it. One hand rests lightly against the cart whenever the wheels cross uneven ground. Nearby, a potter begins shaping fresh clay. His workshop stands open to the morning air. Shelves filled with drying bowls line one wall. Larger storage jars stand upside down along another. The clay itself rests beneath damp cloths to keep it soft until needed. He cuts away a portion with a simple wooden tool and kneads it slowly, pressing out tiny pockets of trapped air. The clay grows smoother beneath steady hands. Round and round the wheel turns. The vessel slowly rises. First a thick base. Then gently curving sides. Finally a narrow mouth carefully shaped with damp fingertips. The potter hardly notices how his hands move. Years of practice guide every motion. Outside, children pass by carrying tiny baskets almost too large for their small arms. Some have been asked to gather animal dung left to dry beneath the sun. Once fully dried, it too becomes useful fuel for cooking fires, especially when mixed with chopped straw or reeds. Even this humble work matters. Fuel is always valuable. Nothing that burns safely is overlooked. The sun continues climbing. Its warmth settles over rooftops and courtyards. Stone thresholds become warm beneath bare feet. The packed earth inside open courtyards begins losing the last traces of coolness carried over from the night. Many families finish the heaviest work before midday. They know what the hours ahead will bring. Heat. Bright light. Air that hardly moves. Already, some workers wrap additional linen across the backs of their necks before heading toward fields or workshops. Water jars stand beneath shaded awnings wherever possible. Their porous clay slowly cools the water inside through quiet evaporation, making each drink slightly more refreshing than the warm air around it. A young girl carefully fills several cups for her grandparents. She carries them one at a time, walking slowly to avoid spilling even a single drop. Water is precious. Every careful step shows respect for the effort required to bring it home from the river. In another corner of the village, an elderly scribe sits cross-legged beneath a shaded porch. His work begins after the busiest morning chores have ended. Before him lies a roll of papyrus. A wooden pallet rests beside it. Small cakes of black and red pigment wait inside shallow spaces carved into the wood. He dips a slender reed brush into water before touching it gently against the black pigment. Then he begins writing. Each sign appears slowly, carefully, patiently. The movement of the brush is almost as steady as the river itself. Nearby, a young apprentice watches every stroke with complete attention. He says nothing. Learning often begins with silence. Many years will pass before his own hand moves with the same confidence. Until then, he watches, listens, practices, makes mistakes, tries again. The village settles into the familiar rhythm of another ordinary day. Smoke rises lazily above flat rooftops. Goats wander through shaded alleys. Cats stretch beneath low walls warmed by the sun. The breeze has nearly disappeared now, and the warmth gathers over the valley like a soft blanket. The bundle of firewood collected at dawn now rests safely beneath the family's roof. It waits quietly. Later, when evening shadows return and the day's labor begins to fade, those dry branches will awaken once more as gentle flames, filling the little home with the comforting scent of wood smoke and the simple promise of another shared meal beside the patient waters of the Nile. The wood rests quietly beneath the shelter of the roof, waiting without complaint. It asks for nothing. It simply remains dry and ready, its purpose already understood by everyone in the household. As the sun continues its slow climb across the wide Egyptian sky, the village settles into the steady rhythm that has shaped countless ordinary days. Every family follows a pattern that feels familiar, not because it is written anywhere, but because it has been lived over and over again through the passing seasons. The warmth becomes more noticeable with each passing hour. The cool air of dawn has completely faded now. The shadows beneath the walls grow smaller. The bright light reflects from pale stone and packed earth until almost every surface seems to glow softly beneath the sun. Inside the family's courtyard, the morning meal is nearly ready. The mother kneels beside the small clay oven. The fire she patiently built from reeds and dry wood now burns with a quiet, steady strength. The orange glow reaches deep inside the rounded oven, warming its thick clay walls. She knows exactly when the heat is right. There is no need for instruments or measurements. Years of practice have taught her to judge the fire by its color, its sound, and the gentle warmth she feels against the back of her hand. She places a round piece of dough against the inner wall of the oven. It clings there. Slowly it begins to change. The pale surface becomes slightly darker. Tiny bubbles appear. The smell of baking bread spreads through the courtyard. It is one of the oldest familiar scents in the village. Children notice it immediately. The youngest quietly wanders closer, drawn not only by hunger but by comfort. Fresh bread means the household is awake. It means another ordinary day has begun just as yesterday did. His mother smiles gently without looking away from her work. "Not yet," she says softly. The child nods. He has heard those words many mornings before. He sits nearby, watching the fire dance behind the opening of the oven. Small flames reach around the pieces of wood collected beside the Nile only a short time ago. Some of the thinner branches have already become glowing coals. Others still hold their shape, slowly blackening as they give away their warmth. Nothing about the fire seems hurried. It works quietly, patiently. The father washes his hands with water poured carefully from a clay jar. Only a little water is needed. Every drop has been carried from the river. Every drop matters. He rubs away the dust gathered during the morning's walk before sitting upon a simple woven mat beneath the narrow strip of shade beside the house. For a few moments, there is very little conversation. The family listens instead. A dove coos from somewhere on a nearby roof. A goat shakes a small bell hanging loosely from its neck. Someone farther down the lane sweeps dust from a doorway using a bundle of stiff reeds. The gentle scraping rises and falls with an almost soothing rhythm. A donkey lets out a low call. Then quiet returns. Ancient villages were rarely silent, yet the sounds belonged together so naturally that they blended into something peaceful. No single noise demanded attention. Instead, each became part of the day's familiar music. Bread is broken rather than cut. Warm pieces are shared around a small meal. There are onions gathered from nearby fields. A few dates remain from an earlier harvest. Some soft cheese rests inside a shallow clay bowl. The meal is simple. Simple meals are common. No one expects a great feast on an ordinary morning. The food is enough to restore strength before the work continues. After eating, each member of the household returns to familiar responsibilities. The father prepares tools that will be needed later. A wooden handle has become loose. He wedges a small piece of dry wood into the opening and tests it carefully. Better to repair it now than discover the problem while working beneath the afternoon sun. Nearby, his wife rinses the mixing bowl. She uses coarse sand first to scrub away bits of dried dough before adding only a little water. Clay bowls are valuable. They are cared for gently. The children carry out smaller tasks. One gathers scattered reeds from the courtyard. Another folds woven sleeping mats that had been aired in the morning light. Their work is not heavy. It is simply part of belonging to the household. Little by little, children learn that every pair of hands can help. The village lanes grow quieter as more people leave for the fields. Those who remain often work in shaded spaces. Weavers sit beneath simple awnings where sunlight cannot fade the fibers too quickly. Their looms stand upright against mud brick walls. Thread stretches tightly between wooden beams. Patient fingers guide each strand across another. Back and forth. Again. Again. The growing cloth lengthens so slowly that it almost seems not to move at all. Yet by evening another small section has appeared. Days become cloth in this quiet way. Across the village, a carpenter smooths the surface of a wooden stool. Good wood is uncommon. Every shaving that curls away from his blade falls into a small basket. Even these thin curls may later help someone start a cooking fire. He wastes nothing. The scent of freshly cut wood mingles with the warm smell of drying clay and baked bread drifting through the village. The heat grows heavier. The bright sky seems almost without end. Far beyond the fields, the desert lies still beneath shimmering air. Closer to the river, green life continues to flourish. Tall papyrus plants sway gently whenever the faintest breeze reaches them. Dragonflies skim above quiet pools left behind by earlier floods. Tiny fish gather near the shaded edges of the water where reeds offer protection. The Nile never seems to hurry. It flows with quiet confidence. The people who live beside it have learned much from watching its patient movement. Work done steadily is often better than work done quickly. The father leaves the courtyard once more, this time carrying only a small bundle of rope and a simple wooden tool. He walks toward the edge of the cultivated fields where neighbors are repairing a low irrigation bank. The floods have long since withdrawn, leaving rich dark soil behind. Now the channels must be maintained by careful hands. A break in one small wall could allow precious water to escape. Several men are already there. No one gives loud instructions. Each person sees what needs to be done. One presses damp earth firmly into place. Another carries baskets filled with mud. A third smooths the surface with a flat wooden board. Their sandals leave clear prints in the moist soil before the sun slowly dries them away. The work is steady. The conversation is quiet. Sometimes many minutes pass with only the sounds of birds, moving water, and the soft scrape of tools against earth. No one minds. Silence feels comfortable among people who have worked beside one another for many years. From time to time someone pauses to drink. A shared water jar passes from one pair of hands to another. Each person takes only enough to ease the dryness in the mouth before passing it along. The cool clay of the jar feels pleasant against warm fingers. Above them, white clouds drift so slowly that they seem almost still. The afternoon has not yet arrived, but everyone can already feel it waiting beyond the bright morning. The day's labor will continue, just as the river continues, one careful movement after another beneath the endless Egyptian sky. The gentle work beside the irrigation bank continues without haste. Damp earth is lifted, pressed into place, and smoothed by hands that have repeated the same careful motions through many seasons. The small channel slowly takes shape again, ready to guide the river's water when it is needed. No one speaks very much. Words are saved for moments that truly require them. Instead, the quiet sounds of work fill the warm air. A wooden shovel settles into soft mud. A basket brushes lightly against a linen garment. Sandals make gentle impressions along the moist bank before lifting away again. The Nile flows only a short distance away, its broad surface reflecting the growing brightness of the day. From where the workers stand, they can hear the steady whisper of water moving past reeds and smooth stones. It is never completely silent. Even on the calmest morning, the river seems to breathe. The father pauses for a moment and straightens his back. His shoulders feel the pleasant ache that comes after useful work. He wipes a little moisture from his forehead with the back of his hand and looks toward the fields. The barley ripples gently whenever a light breeze passes over it. The green stalks lean together for a moment before standing upright once more. It is a quiet movement, almost like the slow rise and fall of someone peacefully asleep. Several women walk carefully between the rows of growing plants. Each carries a small woven basket hanging from one arm. They stop from time to time to pull away weeds that have appeared among the crops. The unwanted plants are gathered without anger or frustration. They are simply another part of caring for the fields. Nearby, a young boy follows his grandfather through a narrow irrigation channel. The older man points toward the damp soil beside the water. The boy kneels, placing both hands into the cool earth. His fingers sink gently into the rich mud left behind by the river's floods. The grandfather smiles. Good soil needs few words of explanation. The child can feel its softness. He can see its dark color. One day these quiet lessons will become his own understanding. For now, he simply watches. He listens. He remembers. The sun climbs a little higher. Its warmth settles across the valley with patient certainty. The air grows still. Birdsong becomes less frequent as many birds seek the shade of thick reeds or palm trees. Even the insects seem quieter now. The father returns to smoothing the irrigation bank. His hands move almost without thought. Years of experience have taught his body exactly how much pressure to use. Too little, and the wall may weaken. Too much, and the soft earth may crumble. Balance comes through practice. Practice comes through time. Time passes gently beside the Nile. Farther downstream, several boats drift with the slow current. Their square linen sails hang almost motionless because the morning breeze has nearly disappeared. The boatmen use long wooden poles to guide their vessels through the quieter stretches of water. Each push is slow. Each movement measured. The boats carry many different things. Large baskets filled with grain. Clay jars sealed with woven lids. Bundles of fresh papyrus. Simple wooden tools. Occasionally a small goat stands quietly among the cargo, blinking in the bright sunlight as though the gentle rocking of the boat has made it pleasantly sleepy. Merchants sit beneath small shades made from woven reeds. They protect themselves from the growing heat while watching the shoreline pass slowly by. There is no need to hurry. The river itself decides the pace. At the edge of the village, the potter has begun placing yesterday's finished vessels into his kiln. Each bowl is lifted with both hands. Each jar is set carefully beside the next. The arrangement matters. Air must move freely around every piece. The fire inside the kiln must warm them evenly. The dry wood gathered by many families throughout the village will help feed fires like this one. Without fuel, the clay would remain soft. Without careful firing, a water jar could never hold cool drinking water through the heat of summer. The potter closes the opening of the kiln with flat pieces of clay and stone, leaving only small spaces where air may enter. Soon smoke begins rising from the top. It curls upward in lazy circles before disappearing into the cloudless sky. The smell is familiar. Warm earth. Dry wood. A faint sweetness carried from burning straw. People passing the workshop hardly notice it. It has always belonged to the village. Near another home, two sisters sit together beneath the shade of a date palm. One carefully repairs a woven basket whose handle has begun to loosen. The other twists fresh strands of plant fiber between her fingers. The work is slow. Patient. Every strand must be tight enough to hold weight but flexible enough to bend without breaking. They talk quietly while they work. Their conversation moves as gently as their hands. They speak about the coming harvest. About a neighbor's new baby. About whether the figs near the southern fields will ripen early this year. Their voices never rise above the sound of the breeze moving softly through the palm leaves overhead. Children wander nearby, finding their own small adventures. One little girl gathers smooth pebbles from the edge of a dusty path. She studies each one carefully before placing it into the fold of her linen garment. Some are pale gray. Others carry tiny streaks of brown or red. To anyone else they might seem ordinary. To her they are treasures. She arranges them later in careful circles beside the doorway of her home. No one tells her to hurry. Childhood beside the Nile moves at its own quiet pace. An elderly woman sits on a low stool spinning flax into thread. The spindle turns steadily between her fingers. Round and round. The growing thread becomes finer with every careful twist. She has been spinning for so many years that her hands seem to remember the work even when her thoughts drift elsewhere. Perhaps she remembers her own grandmother. Perhaps she recalls mornings from long ago when she herself first learned to spin beneath another patch of shade. The village carries its memories not only through stories but through repeated actions. Hands teach hands. Eyes teach eyes. Morning teaches morning. As the day approaches its hottest hours, many workers begin seeking brief moments of rest whenever they can. A broad sycamore fig tree offers welcome shade beside the path leading toward the river. Several laborers gather beneath its wide branches. They lower their baskets to the ground. One removes a small loaf of bread wrapped in cloth. Another shares several onions. Someone else passes around a handful of dried dates. The meal is quiet. Simple. No one eats quickly. The shade itself feels almost nourishing after standing beneath the open sun. A gentle breeze finally stirs again. It carries the scent of water across the fields. The leaves above whisper softly together. For a few moments, everyone simply listens. No one feels the need to fill every silence. The father closes his eyes briefly. Only for a moment. The coolness beneath the tree eases the warmth that has gathered across his shoulders. His breathing slows. The sounds around him become gentle and distant. Somewhere nearby, a bee visits tiny blossoms hidden among the grasses. A dove coos from a branch overhead. Far across the water, another boatman's voice drifts softly across the river before fading into the bright afternoon air. Soon the work will begin again. There are still channels to repair, fields to tend, tools to carry home before sunset. But for this little while, beneath the generous shade of the old tree, the village seems to pause. The Nile continues flowing exactly as it always has. Its patient waters move quietly past fields, reeds, fishing boats, and mudbrick homes, carrying with them another peaceful day in the endless rhythm of ancient Egypt. The shade beneath the old sycamore fig seems to hold the morning just a little longer, even as the sun continues its slow journey across the sky. The leaves above move only when the breeze remembers to visit them. Between those quiet moments, they rest almost perfectly still, casting gentle patterns of light and shadow upon the ground. The workers finish the last of their simple meal. One man brushes a few crumbs from his linen garment. Another folds a small cloth and places it carefully back into his basket. Nothing is left behind except a few tiny footprints in the dust, and even those will soon soften beneath the passing wind. They rise one by one. Not because anyone calls them. Not because a bell announces the hour. Their bodies simply know when it is time to continue. The father lifts his small bundle of tools once more. The wood of the handle feels warm now where it rested in the sunlight. He adjusts his grip and follows the narrow path toward another section of the irrigation channels. The earth beneath his sandals has begun to dry. In places, the mud has hardened into firm ground marked with countless footprints from earlier days. Some are fresh. Others have nearly disappeared beneath drifting dust. Layer upon layer of footsteps quietly records the passing of ordinary lives. A white egret stands motionless beside a shallow pool. Its long legs disappear beneath the water, while its bright feathers almost seem to glow beneath the afternoon sun. It waits. Patiently. The bird understands that stillness often brings more success than restless movement. For many long moments it does not move at all. Then, with surprising gentleness, it lowers its beak into the water and lifts a tiny fish. The ripples spread outward in perfect circles before fading again into calm. The father watches only briefly before continuing on. There is comfort in seeing familiar sights. The birds. The reeds. The slow boats. The broad river. Each belongs exactly where it has always belonged. The path bends toward a small cluster of date palms growing close together near the water's edge. Their trunks lean slightly toward the river, shaped by years of steady winds. Fallen dates lie scattered beneath them, their sweet scent faint but pleasant in the warm air. Several children have gathered there with woven baskets. An older woman watches over them from the shade. She does not hurry them. She lets each child discover the fruit hidden among dry leaves and grasses. Small hands reach carefully beneath the fallen palm fronds. Now and then a delighted voice quietly announces another date found beneath the shade. The older woman smiles. Each basket slowly becomes heavier. There is satisfaction in watching simple work slowly become complete. One of the smallest children stops for a moment to look toward the river. His attention is caught by a pair of ducks gliding across the quiet water. They leave two narrow lines behind them that stretch farther and farther until they disappear completely. The child watches until they are gone. Then he returns to gathering fruit. His world is full of small wonders. He does not need grand events to fill the day. Farther along the shoreline, a fisherman sits alone repairing one of his reed baskets. The basket has carried many catches over the years. Its edges have become smooth from constant use. A few reeds have loosened where the weight of fish has stretched them. With slow fingers, he weaves fresh reeds into the old ones. The new strands are slightly lighter in color. For a little while they stand apart from the older reeds. Soon enough, sunlight, dust, and years of use will make them almost impossible to tell apart. So it is with many repairs. Time gently blends the old and the new together. A soft breeze finally returns from the north. It travels over the cool surface of the Nile before reaching the warm fields. The workers welcome it without saying a word. Their linen garments stir lightly. The breeze carries the clean scent of fresh water mixed with damp earth and growing reeds. For a few precious moments, the heat feels lighter. The father pauses beside a shallow canal where water moves quietly between raised banks. Tiny frogs rest among the grasses. Dragonflies hover above the surface, their delicate wings catching flashes of sunlight each time they change direction. He kneels and cups a little water into his hands. It is pleasantly cool. He splashes his face gently. Droplets fall back into the canal, joining the water that has traveled so far before reaching this quiet place. Nearby, another farmer does the same. They exchange a small smile. No words are needed. The cool water speaks well enough for both of them. The afternoon continues its slow unfolding. Back in the village, the potter's kiln has grown steadily hotter. Thin smoke rises in graceful ribbons above the roof of the workshop. Inside the thick clay walls, bowls and jars slowly become stronger. The fire works patiently. Just as bread cannot be hurried in the oven, clay cannot be hurried in the kiln. The potter checks the small opening only now and then. He has learned that constant worry changes very little. Careful preparation has already done most of the work. Nearby, a woman sits beneath a woven awning grinding dried herbs with a smooth stone. The leaves release their fragrance as they are crushed. Mint. Coriander. A little cumin. The pleasant scents drift into the lane, mixing with the smell of warm bread that still lingers from the morning. A clay bowl beside her slowly fills with the green mixture. It will flavor the evening meal. The grinding stone moves in slow circles. Round and round. The rhythm is steady enough to feel almost like breathing. Across the courtyard, an elderly man mends a pair of sandals. The leather has become thin where many miles have worn it smooth. He cuts a small patch from another piece of leather and stitches it carefully into place using a bone needle and strong thread. Every stitch is pulled tight. Every knot is checked twice. Good sandals are worth repairing. They carry a person through fields, along riverbanks, across dusty roads, and home again at sunset. They quietly share every journey. As the day grows older, the sounds of work begin to soften. Not because the village has become empty. Rather, each task has settled into its own quiet rhythm. The carpenter smooths another piece of wood. The weaver guides another row of thread. The scribe finishes another careful line of writing. The baker removes another loaf from the warm oven. None of these moments seem important by themselves. Together they become the life of the village. History often remembers great monuments built from enormous blocks of stone. Yet every monument rested upon countless ordinary days like this one. Someone baked the bread. Someone carried the water. Someone gathered the firewood. Someone repaired the baskets. Someone swept the courtyard before sunrise. Someone waited patiently beside the kiln. The quiet work of many hands supported everything else. The father finishes the last small repair along the irrigation channel and stands slowly. He looks across the broad fields stretching toward the distant desert. The sunlight has begun to change. Its brightness softens ever so slightly. The shadows beneath the palms lengthen by the smallest measure. The hottest part of the day has begun to pass. Soon the village will gradually awaken again from its slower afternoon pace. Boats will return toward the shore. Children will finish their games. Families will begin preparing the evening meal. The bundle of firewood resting beneath the family's roof will soon be carried once more to the little clay oven, where dry branches gathered beside the Nile at dawn will become gentle flames, quiet warmth, and the comforting glow that welcomes another peaceful evening beside the patient river. The afternoon light grows softer in ways that are almost too gentle to notice. The bright white glow of midday slowly becomes warmer, touching the mudbrick walls with shades of pale gold. The river reflects the changing sky, and small ripples shimmer like pieces of polished stone drifting quietly downstream. The father begins the walk home. His pace is unhurried. The day's labor has settled comfortably into his muscles. His shoulders feel heavy, but not unpleasantly so. It is the familiar weight that comes after honest work beneath the open sky. The narrow footpath winds between fields where the barley stands nearly waist high. A light breeze finally returns, moving across the green stalks in long, gentle waves. For a few moments the entire field seems alive, bending together before slowly standing upright again. Tiny insects rise from the grasses as he walks. Some settle again almost immediately. Others drift lazily toward the reeds beside the Nile. The warm air carries many quiet scents. Dry earth warmed by the afternoon sun. Fresh-cut reeds stacked beside a small canal. The sweetness of ripe dates resting beneath their palms. The faint smoke of cooking fires that have begun to awaken once again. Even before reaching the village, he knows that many households have started preparing the evening meal. The smoke rises in thin gray threads above the rooftops. Each thread marks another family gathering after a long day. Near the riverbank, several fishermen are returning. Their boats move slowly through the calm water. The day's catch rests inside woven baskets covered with damp cloth to keep the fish cool beneath the fading sun. The men guide their boats toward familiar places along the shore. Wooden poles sink gently into the muddy bottom. The boats glide the last few steps almost without sound. One fisherman steps carefully onto the bank. His knees bend slightly as he lifts a heavy basket onto his shoulder. He pauses for only a moment before beginning the short walk toward home. The work is nearly finished. Only the quiet tasks of evening remain. Farther down the shoreline, children wait for the boats with eager eyes. Not because they expect gifts. Simply because the return of the fishermen has become part of every evening they can remember. One small boy waves enthusiastically. His grandfather smiles and lifts a single shining fish from the basket. The child carefully carries it home with both hands, holding it as though it were something precious. In many homes tonight, fish from the Nile will rest beside warm bread baked from grain grown in fields watered by the same river. The day's work quietly joins together. Nothing stands alone. The father reaches the first houses of the village. The familiar lane is alive with gentle evening activity. Women sweep courtyards using long reed brooms. Fine dust rises into the golden sunlight before slowly settling again. Goats wander home almost without guidance, already knowing which doorway belongs to them. A cat stretches lazily upon a warm stone before curling into a comfortable circle. Nearby, two elderly neighbors sit together on low stools outside their homes. Between them rests a basket of flax waiting to be spun into thread. Their hands continue working while they speak softly. Sometimes they pause for long stretches without saying anything at all. The silence between old friends is comfortable. It asks for nothing. A little farther along, a young apprentice carries freshly shaped clay bowls from the potter's workshop. Each bowl is balanced carefully upon a flat wooden board. He walks slowly. Every step matters. Fresh clay remembers even the smallest careless movement. Inside the workshop, the potter opens the kiln just enough to study the color of the glowing fire. Warm air rolls gently outward. The smell of baked clay fills the doorway. He nods quietly to himself before closing it once again. The vessels still need more time. Many good things cannot be hurried. The father arrives home just as his youngest child is arranging little piles of smooth pebbles beside the doorway once again. The circles are different from those made this morning. Some are large. Others small. One resembles the shape of the moon. Another looks almost like the gentle curve of the river itself. The child looks up with a broad smile. Without speaking, the father crouches beside him. Together they look at the tiny patterns. There is no lesson. No task. Only a peaceful moment shared at the end of the day. Soon the child laughs quietly and runs toward the courtyard where the smell of baking bread has become impossible to ignore. The father follows more slowly. Inside, the household has already begun preparing the evening fire. The bundle of wood gathered before sunrise is untied. Each branch is chosen with care. The smallest twigs are placed first. Then a handful of dry reeds. Finally, several thicker pieces are laid gently across the growing fire. The mother kneels beside the oven. She blows softly across yesterday's remaining embers, now joined by fresh kindling. A faint curl of smoke appears. Then another. Moments later, a small flame begins to dance between the reeds. It grows quietly. Never rushing. Never demanding attention. The fire simply becomes what it was always meant to be. Orange light flickers against the smooth clay walls of the oven. The warmth spreads slowly through the little courtyard. The father places another branch onto the fire. It settles with a soft crackle. The dry wood gives itself willingly to the flame. The smell is comforting. A little sweet. a little earthy. It mingles with the scent of rising bread and crushed herbs waiting nearby. The evening meal begins to take shape. A clay pot filled with lentils is placed above the fire. Water begins to warm. Tiny bubbles slowly gather along the bottom before rising quietly to the surface. Onions are sliced into thin pieces. Fresh herbs are added, one careful handful at a time. The aroma changes almost immediately. The children drift closer. One sits cross-legged beside the doorway. Another leans gently against a mud-brick wall, watching the dancing fire with sleepy eyes. The long day has left them pleasantly tired. The oldest child quietly feeds another small stick into the flames. He has watched his parents do this many times. He knows not to place too much wood at once. A gentle fire cooks more evenly than one that burns too fiercely. These small lessons are learned without formal teaching. They become part of everyday life. Outside the courtyard walls, the village slowly settles into evening. Voices soften. Footsteps become fewer. Donkeys return to shaded shelters where fresh bundles of straw have been laid before them. The last merchants carry empty baskets home after a long day in the marketplace. A scribe rolls up his papyrus with careful hands, tying it loosely with a strip of linen before placing it inside a wooden box. Nearby, a weaver covers her loom with a clean cloth. Tomorrow the threads will be waiting exactly where she left them. Nothing needs to be finished today. There will be another morning. There always is. The sun lowers toward the western desert. Its light becomes rich and gentle, painting the tops of the palm trees with warm amber. The Nile reflects those colors, carrying them slowly downstream. The river seems almost quieter now. Boats have returned. Fishing nets hang drying from wooden poles. The day's movement gives way to evening stillness. A flock of birds crosses the glowing sky. They travel together in an easy rhythm, their wings rising and falling with calm certainty before disappearing beyond the reeds. The family gathers around the evening meal. Bread is broken and shared. The lentils have become soft. The herbs fill the warm air with their pleasant fragrance. The fire crackles gently beneath the clay pot, fed by branches collected along the Nile only that morning. The father glances toward the small stack of wood that remains beside the wall. There is enough for tomorrow's breakfast. Perhaps enough for another evening as well. Still, when dawn returns, he will once again follow the familiar path beside the patient river. He will walk beneath the quiet palms. He will search among the reeds and fallen branches. He will greet neighbors with gentle nods. He will listen to birds greeting the morning. And the Nile, as it has for countless generations, will continue flowing beside him, quietly accompanying another ordinary day in the ancient world. The evening meal continues at an easy pace. No one feels the need to hurry through it. The warmth of the bread, the gentle steam rising from the clay pot, and the soft glow of the fire invite everyone to linger a little longer. Outside the courtyard, the light continues to fade, and with it the busy sounds of the village become quieter. The youngest child tears off another small piece of bread and dips it carefully into the lentils. He watches the steam curl upward before taking a bite. The warmth settles pleasantly inside him. After a long day of walking, learning, and playing beneath the sun, even a simple meal feels rich with comfort. His older sister pours a little water into each clay cup. She is careful not to spill any. The water is cool from the thick clay jar that has rested in the shade all day. Tiny drops of moisture cling to the outside of the jar, and when she places her hand against it, the coolness feels refreshing after the afternoon heat. The father takes a slow drink. The water carries a faint taste of the river. It reminds him of the quiet morning when he walked along the bank searching for dry branches beneath the acacia trees. That morning already feels distant, though only one day has passed. Ancient days are often full from beginning to end. Not with excitement. Not with great events. But with many small tasks that gently fit together, one after another, until the sun finally sinks below the horizon. When the meal is finished, the bowls are gathered together. Nothing is left to waste. The mother pours a little water into each bowl and wipes it clean with a small cloth woven from flax. Sand will be used later to remove whatever remains before the bowls are stacked neatly on a low shelf inside the house. The fire is allowed to grow smaller. There is no need for large flames now. The evening asks for warmth rather than heat. A single thicker branch is placed across the glowing coals. It catches slowly. The wood gives a quiet pop as the fire reaches its center. Tiny sparks rise for only a moment before disappearing into the darkening air. The courtyard becomes filled with soft orange light. It dances gently across the mud-brick walls, changing shape whenever the flames move. The youngest child watches the shadows with sleepy curiosity. Sometimes they look like birds. Sometimes they resemble waving reeds. Sometimes they simply sway back and forth with no shape at all. He leans gently against his father's shoulder. The day's energy has begun to fade. Beyond the walls of the courtyard, the village settles into its evening routines. A woman hangs freshly washed linen over a smooth wooden pole where it will remain through the cooler night air. Nearby, an elderly man carries a bundle of reeds into a small storage room, arranging them carefully so they will stay dry until they are needed. A shepherd counts his goats one final time before closing the simple wooden gate. He knows each animal well. One always lingers behind. Another always walks near the front. They have followed the same path home so many evenings that even the youngest goat seems to know exactly where to go. The sky above the village changes almost without notice. The bright blue of afternoon softens into gentle shades of gold. Then amber. Then pale rose. Far to the west, where the fertile valley slowly gives way to open desert, the horizon glows warmly for a little while longer. The palm trees become dark silhouettes against the fading light. Their leaves move softly whenever the evening breeze passes through them. The air is cooler now. Not cold. Simply comfortable. It carries away the weight of the afternoon heat little by little. Many families choose to sit outside their homes for a while before sleeping. The warmth stored inside the mud-brick walls during the day slowly escapes into the evening air. Neighbors exchange quiet greetings across narrow lanes. An older woman asks whether tomorrow's irrigation work will begin early. A young father nods and smiles. Another family speaks softly about repairing part of their roof before the next flood season arrives. The conversations drift gently through the village. No voice rises above the others. The sounds blend together like the flowing river itself. Near the center of the village, a small oil lamp is lit inside the scribe's home. Its tiny flame flickers behind a simple clay window opening. The scribe unrolls a sheet of papyrus once more. Only for a little while. He wishes to finish copying a few careful lines before sleep. His reed pen moves slowly across the pale surface. Each sign is formed with quiet attention. Outside, a moth circles the lamp again and again. The flame reflects softly in the polished surface of the ink palette resting beside him. Elsewhere, the potter walks around his kiln one final time. The fire inside has settled into deep glowing coals. The clay vessels continue cooling very slowly. He places one hand against the outer wall. Still warm. Tomorrow they will be ready. He smiles quietly to himself before walking home beneath the deepening sky. The stars begin to appear. First one. Then another. Soon dozens are scattered across the darkness above the Nile. Without the bright lights of distant cities, the heavens seem endless. The river reflects many of them, breaking each tiny point of light into gentle shimmering lines that drift upon the current. The father steps outside the courtyard for a few moments. He walks toward the river alone. Not because there is more work to do. Only because the evening beside the Nile has its own quiet beauty. The narrow path feels cool beneath his sandals. Crickets have begun their gentle song among the grasses. Somewhere in the reeds, frogs answer one another with soft, steady calls. The sounds come and go like slow breathing. When he reaches the bank, he pauses. The water moves exactly as it did before sunrise. Exactly as it did beneath the afternoon sun. Exactly as it will through the coming night. The river never seems impatient. It simply continues. A small fishing boat glides silently across the moonlit surface. Its owner checks the ropes one last time before letting the current carry him gently toward the place where he will rest until morning. Nearby, another boat rocks quietly against its wooden stake. Each small movement makes the rope creak almost too softly to hear. The father looks across the broad water. On the opposite bank, a few distant cooking fires still glow like tiny stars resting upon the earth. Soon even those lights will disappear one by one. The breeze carries the fresh scent of the river. He closes his eyes for a single peaceful breath. The cool air eases the warmth that still lingers from the day's work. His hands, rough from years of gathering wood, repairing canals, and carrying heavy baskets, finally become still. There is nothing left to carry tonight. Nothing left to mend. Nothing left to gather. Only the quiet company of the Nile remains. After a little while, he turns and begins the short walk home. Behind him, the river continues its endless journey through the darkness. Ahead, the warm glow of his family's small fire waits inside the courtyard. The children are already growing drowsy. The youngest has curled upon a woven mat, his eyes half closed as he listens to the gentle voices of his parents. The oldest quietly adds one final small piece of firewood to the glowing coals. It catches slowly, sending a soft ribbon of fragrant smoke upward into the peaceful Egyptian night. The warmth spreads gently through the little home. Outside, the stars grow brighter. Inside, the quiet rhythm of another ordinary day gradually gives way to rest, while the patient Nile flows silently beneath the moon, carrying the ancient world through another calm and unhurried night. The fire burns lower as the evening deepens. Its bright flames have settled into a bed of glowing coals that breathe softly beneath a covering of pale gray ash. From time to time, a small piece of wood shifts with a gentle crack, sending a few tiny sparks into the air before they quickly disappear. The family remains together in the courtyard. No one speaks very much. The quiet itself feels welcome after the long hours of work. The youngest child has nearly fallen asleep against his mother's side. His breathing has become slow and even. Every so often he opens his eyes just enough to watch the glowing coals before they become heavy once again. His older sister quietly gathers the empty cups. She carries them inside one at a time, placing each one upside down on a smooth wooden shelf. The clay is still slightly cool beneath her fingertips. Tomorrow morning they will be filled again with fresh water drawn from the Nile. Daily life often moves in gentle circles. Morning follows night. Bread follows grain. Fire follows gathered wood. Rest follows labor. These circles have turned for generations beside the river. Inside the small house, woven reed mats are spread across the packed earth floor. Each mat has been repaired many times over the years. A loose reed here. A new strand woven there. The oldest repairs are difficult to notice now. Time has blended them into the whole. Near one wall rests a wooden chest with a simple rope handle. Inside are folded linen garments, carefully washed and neatly arranged. Beside it stands a clay jar filled with grain. Another holds dried beans. Smaller baskets contain onions, garlic, and herbs gathered earlier in the season. The room is modest. Every object has earned its place. Nothing is kept without purpose. The father steps quietly inside and hangs his work rope upon a wooden peg driven into the mud brick wall. Tomorrow morning he will take it down again. It has become almost as familiar as his own hands. The rope carries baskets, bundles of wood, sometimes tools, sometimes harvested grain. The fibers have darkened where years of use have polished them smooth. He runs his hand lightly along its length before turning away. Outside, the moon has climbed higher above the Nile. Its pale light reaches across rooftops and narrow lanes, touching the quiet village with a soft silver glow. Shadows become gentle rather than dark. The outlines of palm trees stretch across the ground like long painted brush strokes. A cool breeze moves slowly through the village. It slips between the houses, across open courtyards, over sleeping animals, into the reeds beside the river. The air carries the scent of damp earth that has finally begun releasing the day's stored warmth. Several dogs wander lazily through the lanes. They pause from time to time, listening to distant sounds that human ears barely notice. Finding nothing unusual, they continue their slow patrol before curling once again beneath familiar doorways. Near the edge of the village, an elderly fisherman sits beside his boat. He has not yet gone to sleep. Instead, he quietly checks his fishing nets beneath the moonlight. His fingers move patiently through the woven fibers. Every knot is examined. Every loose strand is repaired. Morning arrives quickly for fishermen. Anything left unfinished tonight would become tomorrow's first task. He prefers to greet the dawn with everything ready. The net rests across his knees like a quiet companion. As he works, he listens to the river. The water brushes gently against the side of his small boat. Reeds whisper together nearby. A fish breaks the surface for only a heartbeat before disappearing beneath the calm water once more. Nothing disturbs the peaceful night. Farther inland, one small oil lamp still burns inside the home of a healer. A young mother has come seeking help for her little daughter, who has carried a fever since the afternoon. The healer prepares cool water and crushed herbs with calm hands. His voice remains soft. The child rests quietly while her mother gently wipes her forehead with a damp cloth. Illness has always been part of ordinary life. So too has kindness. Neighbors help when they can. Family members remain close through the night. Morning often brings relief along with the first cool breeze from the river. Back in the family's courtyard, the mother lifts the sleeping child into her arms. He is heavier than he was only a year ago. His head rests comfortably against her shoulder. Without waking him, she carries him inside and lays him gently upon a woven mat. He sighs softly, then settles once again into peaceful sleep. His father watches for a moment. Children grow quietly. Often their changes are noticed only when an ordinary task suddenly feels different. The sandals become too small. The sleeves grow shorter. A child who once needed carrying now walks beside the river with a basket of his own. The older sister carefully folds the linen cloth used during supper. She smooths each corner with both hands before placing it inside the wooden chest. Tomorrow it will be used again. Nothing about the task feels hurried. Even the smallest duties deserve care. Outside, the stars continue their silent journey overhead. Generations of Egyptians have looked toward these same constellations. Farmers, builders, boatmen, potters, weavers, children lying awake for a few extra moments before sleep. The stars belong equally to each of them. The father returns to the courtyard one last time before resting. The fire has become a bed of glowing embers. Only one small flame remains, dancing quietly around the edge of a half-burned branch. He takes a long stick and gently draws the remaining wood closer together. The embers brighten for a moment. A little warmth rises into the cool night air. Then everything becomes still again. He covers part of the glowing coals with a thin layer of ash. By morning, if fortune is kind, a little warmth may remain hidden beneath the pale surface. It will make lighting tomorrow's fire much easier. This simple habit has been practiced in homes along the Nile for countless years. A little care tonight saves effort tomorrow. He stands slowly. The courtyard is peaceful now. Only the quiet breathing of his family reaches his ears. The moonlight falls across the mud-brick walls. The stacked firewood rests beneath the roof, waiting patiently for another day's cooking. The clay oven, still warm from the evening meal, gives off a gentle heat that slowly fades into the night. Beyond the village, the broad Nile continues its endless journey. The river neither sleeps nor grows tired. It slips silently between its green banks, carrying cool water toward distant places that these villagers will never see. Along its shores, reeds sway softly. A heron stands alone in the shallows, perfectly still beneath the moon. Far away, another village settles into sleep just as this one has done. Another family covers their evening fire with ash. Another fisherman finishes mending his nets. Another child dreams while listening to frogs singing beside the river. The ancient world rests. Not in complete silence, but in 1,000 gentle sounds that belong together. The whisper of moving water. The rustle of palm leaves. The faint crackle of cooling embers. The distant call of a night bird. The slow breathing of people who have worked honestly beneath the Egyptian sun and now sleep peacefully beside the patient Nile, ready to greet another quiet dawn when it arrives. The night grows deeper with such quiet patience that no one notices the exact moment it happens. The last conversations have faded into silence. The final footsteps have disappeared from the narrow lanes. Even the dogs resting beside the doorways have curled tightly into themselves, their ears relaxing now that the village has settled completely. Only the Nile continues its gentle conversation with the shore. The current slips around smooth stones and clusters of reeds, making soft sounds that have never needed to change. The river has spoken in this same quiet voice through seasons of flood and seasons of dry earth, through years when harvests were plentiful and years when they were modest. It asks for no attention. It simply flows. The moon hangs high above the valley. Its pale light rests upon the flat roofs of the mud-brick homes, where the warmth gathered during the day slowly drifts upward into the cool night air. Some families choose to sleep upon these rooftops during the warmer months, carrying woven mats and simple blankets up narrow stairways after the evening meal. On one nearby roof, an elderly couple rests side by side. Their mats are placed near the center, where the breeze can reach them from every direction. A folded linen cloth serves as a pillow beneath each head. They have slept beneath these stars for many summers, and every familiar sound of the night brings comfort rather than surprise. The woman opens her eyes for just a moment. She watches a single cloud drift slowly across the face of the moon. It moves so gently that it seems almost still. Soon her eyes become heavy once again. The quiet air carries the scent of warm clay, dry reeds, and distant water. Sleep returns as softly as the evening breeze. Across the village, another family has spread their mats inside the cool shelter of thick mud brick walls. The youngest child turns over in his sleep, pulling one corner of a woven blanket a little closer beneath his chin. His dreams are simple. Perhaps he dreams of the smooth stones he collected beside the path. Perhaps of ducks gliding across the river. Perhaps of helping carry a tiny bundle of reeds just as the older children do. Children often carry the peaceful moments of the day into their dreams. The father lies awake for a little while longer. Not because he worries. Only because his body is slowly letting go of the work it carried from sunrise until evening. His hands rest comfortably across his chest. They are strong hands. The skin across his palms is thick from years of gathering firewood, lifting baskets, repairing irrigation banks, and working beneath the Egyptian sun. Small scars cross his fingers like quiet memories. One came from a sharp piece of broken pottery. Another from an acacia thorn hidden beneath dry grass. Another from a rough rope that slipped unexpectedly beneath a heavy load. He no longer thinks about where each one came from. They have simply become part of his hands. Tomorrow those same hands will rise before dawn. They will tie baskets, lift branches, carry water, break fresh bread, wave gently to familiar neighbors. The work never truly ends. Yet neither does the quiet satisfaction that comes from completing it one day at a time. Outside, the breeze freshens slightly. Palm leaves begin whispering once again. Their long fronds brush softly against one another, making a sound almost like distant rain. A small owl glides silently between two trees before disappearing into the darkness beyond the fields. The frogs continue their steady chorus among the reeds. They have no audience. They sing simply because night has come. Far out upon the river, a fisherman sleeping in his small boat wakes for only a moment. The gentle rocking of the current has carried him a little farther downstream than he expected. He sits up quietly. The stars are reflected upon the calm surface of the Nile. For a few peaceful breaths he simply watches them shimmer. Then he adjusts the rope securing the boat to a sturdy branch leaning over the water. Satisfied, he settles once more upon his rolled blanket. The boat rocks gently beneath him. Soon his breathing becomes slow again. At the edge of the cultivated fields, the irrigation channels lie perfectly still beneath the moonlight. During the day they carried cool water through the dark soil. Now they rest quietly, reflecting the stars in long, narrow ribbons of silver. A tiny desert fox approaches carefully from beyond the edge of the fields. Its ears stand alert. Its paws make almost no sound upon the dusty ground. It pauses beside the water, lowering its head for a cool drink before disappearing once more into the open land beyond the farms. The valley belongs to many creatures after sunset. Some are rarely seen during the bright hours of the day. Near the village granary, a pair of mice quietly search among scattered grains that escaped from woven baskets earlier in the afternoon. Their tiny movements are almost impossible to hear. Above them, a patient cat watches from the shadow of a low wall. The night has its own gentle rhythm, just as the morning does. Nothing seems hurried. Even the hunt unfolds with quiet patience. The moon slowly begins its journey toward the western sky. Its light changes little by little. Shadows stretch in new directions across the sleeping village. The stacked bundles of firewood beneath the family's roof cast long, peaceful shapes across the courtyard floor. Each bundle represents another morning's careful walk beside the river. Another patient search beneath trees. Another quiet return home. In the stillness of the night, they almost seem to be resting alongside the family who gathered them. Hours pass almost unnoticed. The stars will slowly overhead. One by one, the brightest begin to sink toward the horizon. The coolness deepens just before dawn. It is the freshest air the valley will know all day. Inside the house, the father shifts slightly beneath his blanket. His body has learned this hour without needing to see the sky. For many years he has awakened before the birds, before the first voices, before the first cooking fires. His eyes remain closed. There is no need to rise just yet. For a few moments longer he enjoys the cool stillness. The village remains wrapped in peaceful sleep. The fire beneath its blanket of ash still hides a faint warmth. The clay oven has finally cooled. The baskets stand quietly against the wall. The rope hangs where it was left. The sandals wait beside the doorway, carrying a thin layer of yesterday's dust. Outside, the eastern horizon begins to change. At first it is almost impossible to notice. The blackness softens into the faintest shade of deep blue. Then a narrow line of pale gray appears far beyond the river. The stars nearest the horizon quietly disappear, one after another, as though making room for another day. The Nile catches the first hint of morning before anyone else. Its surface reflects the growing light in long bands of silver that stretch gently between the reeds. A single bird calls. Then another answers from farther downstream. The breeze carries the cool scent of fresh water through the sleeping village. The father opens his eyes. For a moment he remains perfectly still, listening. The frogs have grown quiet. The birds have begun. The river continues its endless song. Another ordinary day beside the Nile is arriving, slowly and gently, just as it has for countless generations, bringing with it another peaceful walk along the riverbank where dry branches wait beneath the trees, ready to become the warmth of another family fire. The first light of dawn spreads gently across the eastern sky. It does not arrive all at once. Instead, it slowly brushes away the darkness, revealing familiar shapes that rested quietly through the night. The tops of the palm trees appear first, standing still against the growing light. Then the roofs of the houses begin to emerge from the shadows. The narrow lanes between them become visible once again, still empty and peaceful. The father listens for another moment before rising. The village is not yet awake, but it is beginning to stir. A bird calls from the branches of a sycamore fig tree. Farther away, another answers. The cool breeze from the river slips softly through the open doorway, carrying with it the fresh scent of damp earth and flowing water. He sits up slowly upon his woven mat. The packed earth beneath his feet still holds the coolness of the night. It feels pleasant after yesterday's warmth. For a few quiet breaths he remains where he is, letting the morning settle around him before beginning another day. His wife is already awake. She moves carefully so as not to disturb the children. Her footsteps are almost silent as she walks toward the clay oven in the courtyard. She kneels beside the ashes covering last night's embers. With a slender stick she gently brushes the ash aside. A faint orange glow still hides beneath. She smiles to herself. The care taken before sleeping has done exactly what she hoped. She gathers a few dry reeds from the bundle resting against the wall. They are thin, light, and crisp from many days beneath the Egyptian sun. She lays them gently across the hidden embers. Then she bends close. One slow breath. Then another. The glow brightens. A thread of smoke rises into the cool morning air. Moments later, a tiny flame appears, no larger than the tip of her thumb. It trembles softly before growing stronger. She waits patiently. Only when the reeds burn steadily does she add a few small twigs from yesterday's collection of firewood. The flame accepts them quietly. Soon the little oven is awake once more. The smell of fresh wood smoke drifts gently through the courtyard. It is one of the first scents of every morning. It slips over the walls into neighboring homes where other families are beginning the very same routine. Across the village, small fires bloom one by one like tiny stars returning to the earth. The father steps outside. The air is wonderfully cool. He takes a slow breath. The breeze carries moisture from the Nile before the heat of the coming day can lift it away. His skin still remembers yesterday's labor, yet the cool morning makes every movement feel easier. He reaches for the rope hanging upon the wall. Its familiar weight settles comfortably into his hands. Nearby rests the woven basket that accompanied him along the riverbank yesterday. He turns it upside down. A few grains of sand fall onto the courtyard floor. One tiny feather, carried home with the bundle of branches, drifts gently into the breeze. He brushes the basket clean with the palm of his hand. It is ready for another journey. Inside the house, the children continue sleeping. The youngest curls closer beneath his blanket. His sister opens her eyes for just a moment as she hears the quiet sounds of her parents beginning the day. She smiles sleepily before closing them again. She knows there is still a little time before she will be asked to help. Morning should begin gently whenever it can. Outside the village, the Nile is changing with the light. The moon has almost disappeared. The eastern sky glows pale gold. The surface of the river reflects both colors at once, creating long ribbons of silver and amber that drift together upon the slow current. Mist rises from a few sheltered places where the cool night air lingered longest. It curls softly above the water before disappearing into the warming morning. The father begins walking toward the river once again. His sandals press lightly into the dust. The village remains quiet behind him. Ahead, the familiar path waits exactly where it always has. The same smooth stones. The same gentle bends. The same reeds whispering beside the water. No two mornings are completely alike. Yet each carries a comforting familiarity. Halfway to the river he meets an elderly neighbor carrying two empty clay jars balanced across a wooden yoke upon his shoulders. They greet one another with quiet smiles. "Good morning. And to you." The words are simple. They carry the warmth of long acquaintance. The older man continues toward the river to collect fresh water before the path grows busy. The father walks on. A pair of ibises search the muddy shoreline with long curved beaks. They move carefully through the shallow water, lifting one foot after another with graceful patience. Nearby, tiny fish ripple the smooth surface before disappearing again beneath the reeds. Everything seems to awaken slowly. The birds first. Then the insects. Then the people. The river has already been awake all night. A fisherman stands beside his small boat, preparing for another day upon the water. He rolls his net carefully before placing it inside the vessel. His movements are calm and practiced. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing is hurried. The father watches him push gently away from the bank. The boat glides almost silently across the still water. Soon it becomes only another dark shape drifting beneath the brightening sky. The path beside the river is cool beneath his feet. Dew has gathered upon patches of grass where the shade lasted longest through the night. Tiny droplets sparkle in the first sunlight. They will disappear quickly once the warmth returns. He pauses beneath the same acacia tree where he found several good branches yesterday. The ground looks different in the gentle morning light. A breeze has carried new leaves across the sand. A small branch that escaped notice yesterday now rests partly hidden beneath them. He bends. Brushes the leaves aside. Lifts the branch. It is dry. Light. perfect for the cooking fire. He places it quietly into the empty basket. The soft sound of wood settling against woven reeds is one he has heard thousands of times. Yet it never feels tiresome. It simply marks another beginning. As he continues walking, the morning grows brighter. The first rays of sunlight touch the tops of the reeds. Spider webs stretched between their stems suddenly become visible, each one covered with tiny drops of dew that shine like little stars. For a few moments they sparkle brilliantly. Then, as the sun climbs higher, the moisture slowly disappears. A woman approaches carrying her own basket. She nods with a warm smile. Together they search beneath the scattered trees without speaking very much. Now and then one quietly points toward a fallen branch hidden beneath dry grasses. The other nods in thanks. There is enough for everyone who gathers with care. Neither feels the need to take more than is needed. The Nile has taught patience. The land has taught respect. The morning continues unfolding one peaceful moment after another. The baskets slowly begin to fill. Birdsong drifts through the cool air. The scent of damp earth rises from the riverbank. The gentle breeze brushes across the reeds, carrying the promise of another warm day still waiting beyond the horizon. And beneath the quiet shade of the acacia trees, ordinary people continue their timeless work, gathering simple pieces of fallen wood that will soon become bread, warmth, comfort, and the glowing heart of another peaceful evening beside the ever-flowing Nile. The first rays of sunlight spread quietly across the eastern edge of the valley. They reach the tops of the tallest palms before touching the roofs of the village. One by one, the mudbrick walls begin to glow with a soft golden color. The cool blue of night gently slips away, leaving behind another calm Egyptian morning. The father steps through the doorway carrying his empty basket. Its woven reeds are smooth from years of careful use. The handles fit comfortably into his hands without thought. They have followed the shape of his fingers through many seasons until basket and hands seem almost to belong together. Behind him, the small cooking fire continues to grow. His wife has added another handful of slender twigs. The tiny flames move quietly around the wood, slowly waking the clay oven. A pleasant scent of smoke drifts into the fresh morning air, joining dozens of other fires that have begun to burn throughout the village. Every household greets the day in much the same way. A little fire. A little bread. A little water drawn from the Nile. Simple beginnings that have comforted families for generations. The narrow lane outside remains mostly empty. Only a few early travelers have begun their walk toward the river. An elderly woman balances two empty jars across a wooden carrying pole resting upon her shoulders. She moves with slow confidence, taking careful steps over the uneven ground. She has carried water this way for so many years that her body understands the work without asking for guidance. A young man follows behind her with a bundle of fishing nets resting against his shoulder. He nods politely as he passes. The father returns the greeting with a quiet smile. No conversation is needed. Morning still belongs to silence. The air feels wonderfully fresh. During the night, the desert released the warmth it gathered beneath yesterday's sun. Now a gentle coolness lingers across the valley, touching every stone, every reed, every blade of grass that grows beside the patient river. He walks toward the familiar path. The ground is slightly damp in places where the night's dew settled before sunrise. Tiny footprints left yesterday have softened around the edges. New prints will soon cover them, just as today's footsteps will one day fade beneath tomorrow's. Nothing remains forever except the river itself. Even it changes while always appearing the same. The Nile greets him quietly. Its broad surface reflects the pale morning sky with hardly a ripple. A light mist floats above sheltered coves where the cool air still lingers. The reeds stand tall along the shoreline, their slender stems shining with droplets that catch the early sunlight. He pauses for a moment before beginning his search. There is no reason to rush. The branches waited through the night. They will wait another moment still. Nearby, an ibis walks through the shallow water with slow, measured steps. Every movement seems thoughtful. Its long beak disappears beneath the surface before rising again with a tiny insect gathered from the mud. The bird continues its breakfast. The father continues his own quiet work. He bends beneath a tamarisk tree whose branches cast delicate shadows across the sand. A fallen limb rests beneath a layer of dry leaves. He brushes them gently aside. The wood is dry. Its bark has already begun to loosen. When he lifts it, it feels light enough to burn well. He places it carefully into the basket. The sound is soft. Wood against woven reeds. A familiar beginning to another day's gathering. Farther along the bank, several children have come with their grandmother. Each carries a basket much smaller than those used by the adults. Their task is not to collect large branches. Instead they search for kindling. Tiny sticks. Dry seed pods. Thin twigs scattered among the grasses. The smallest pieces often prove the most valuable when morning fires are first awakened. The grandmother never tells them exactly where to look. She simply walks slowly, allowing curious eyes to discover what patient searching reveals. One little boy kneels beside a cluster of reeds. For a moment he believes he has found a branch. Instead it is an old root polished smooth by many seasons of flood water. He turns it over in his hands. Its shape twists gently like the body of a sleeping snake. He carries it proudly to his grandmother. She smiles kindly. "It will burn well," she says. The boy places it carefully into the basket. His face glows with quiet satisfaction. Children learn confidence through many small successes. The father continues walking beside the river. A fallen palm frond lies half buried beneath fine sand. Its long leaf stems have dried until they snap easily beneath gentle pressure. He breaks them into shorter lengths. These will catch fire quickly beneath heavier branches. He ties them neatly with a strip of woven fiber before placing them beside the larger pieces already resting in the basket. The sun climbs a little higher. Its warmth begins to settle gently across his shoulders. Still, the morning remains pleasant. The breeze from the river carries coolness that softens the coming heat. Across the water, two fishermen lift their nets together. Water streams from the woven fibers in bright silver lines before falling back into the Nile. Small fish flash briefly in the sunlight. The men work quietly. One untangles reeds caught in the mesh. The other folds the net carefully so it will not twist when cast again. Everything has its proper order. A tangled net catches fewer fish. A neatly folded one opens easily across the water. Nearby, a boat builder sits beside the skeleton of a small reed boat resting upon wooden supports. He runs his hand slowly along one bundle of tightly bound reeds. A few have loosened. With fresh cord made from twisted plant fiber, he pulls them firmly into place. His fingers move steadily. Pull. Tie. Tighten. Check. Then begin again. There is comfort in repeating work that has become familiar. Each careful knot promises another season upon the river. The father pauses beneath another acacia tree. The branches above sway gently in the morning breeze. Several dry limbs have fallen since the last strong wind. He kneels to gather them one by one. The basket slowly grows heavier. Its weight settles comfortably against his shoulder. Not burdensome. Simply reassuring. Each branch means another loaf of bread. Another warm pot of lentils. Another evening when the children can watch gentle flames dancing inside the clay oven. The morning continues unfolding with quiet grace. The birds sing from hidden branches. Dragonflies drift above the still water. The scent of damp earth slowly gives way to the warm fragrance of sunlit reeds. Behind him, the village grows busier as more families begin their daily work. Ahead of him, the winding river stretches beyond sight, carrying with it countless ordinary mornings, each as gentle as the last, each filled with the quiet labor of people whose names have long been forgotten, yet whose peaceful routines still seem to linger beside the ever-flowing Nile. The basket grows a little heavier with each careful stop. The father does not notice the weight all at once. It comes gradually, branch by branch, until the woven straps settle more firmly across his shoulder. It is a familiar feeling, one that has greeted him on hundreds of mornings beside the Nile. He pauses beneath another cluster of trees. Their roots reach deep into the rich soil left behind by many seasons of flooding. Above, small birds move quietly through the branches, searching for seeds hidden among the leaves. Every now and then one flutters down to the ground, pecks gently at the earth, and lifts into the air once again. The morning breeze stirs the leaves overhead. Their soft rustling blends with the steady murmur of the river. Neither sound asks to be noticed. Both simply belong. The father bends slowly and picks up another fallen limb. Its bark has become pale beneath the sun. When he taps it gently against the ground, it makes a dry, hollow sound. Good wood. He brushes away a little sand before laying it across the other branches inside the basket. The pieces fit together naturally, almost as though they had been waiting to be gathered. Farther along the shoreline, an old reed cutter has already begun his morning work. He stands knee-deep in the shallow water, surrounded by tall green papyrus. With a simple bronze knife, he cuts each stalk close to the water line. One by one they fall gently into his waiting arms. He never cuts too many from one place. He leaves enough for the reeds to grow thick again. The river has taught him that taking only what is needed allows tomorrow to arrive with the same quiet gifts. He gathers the cut reeds into neat bundles and ties them with strips of plant fiber. Later they may become mats for sleeping. They may become baskets for carrying grain. Some may be woven into small boats that drift quietly along the edge of the Nile. Nothing is hurried. Every bundle grows slowly. Nearby, a pair of women kneel beside the water washing linen garments. The cloth is dipped into the cool river, rubbed gently between careful hands, then spread across smooth stones where the first warmth of the sun begins drying it. They speak softly as they work. Sometimes they laugh, but even their laughter is gentle. It rises only for a moment before blending once more into the sounds of the morning. The father smiles quietly as he passes. He has known these voices for many years. The village is not large. Everyone becomes part of everyone else's ordinary days. A little farther ahead, the path narrows where reeds grow thick along the bank. The ground here remains damp longer than in other places. His sandals leave clear prints behind him. Soon the breeze will carry a little dust across them. By tomorrow they may disappear completely. He thinks nothing of it. Footprints are meant to fade. Only the path remains. The sun climbs another little distance into the sky. Golden light now reaches places that were shaded only moments before. The dew begins disappearing from the grasses. Tiny droplets that sparkled like jewels melt quietly into the warming earth. The father stops beside a weathered stump that has rested there for as long as he can remember. Years ago it belonged to a large tree that shaded this bend in the river. Now only the broad base remains. Its roots still hold the soil together whenever the flood waters return. Several mushrooms have appeared along one side after recent moisture. He kneels beside the stump, not because he intends to gather anything from it, but simply because it reminds him how slowly the land changes. A child who first visited this place with his father now comes here as a grown man. One day another child will kneel beside this same old stump. The river will continue flowing. The reeds will continue growing. Morning after morning will arrive just as gently as this one. He rises again. The basket gives a quiet creak. The rope across his shoulder settles into place. Ahead, smoke has begun rising from more cooking fires in the village. The faint scent reaches him across the fields. Fresh bread. Warm grain. Wood smoke. The smell reminds him that many households are beginning breakfast. Women turn loaves inside clay ovens. Children wash their faces with cool water. Older brothers and sisters help sweep courtyards before the heat arrives. A pot of lentils quietly simmers over glowing coals. A clay jar is lifted carefully from its shaded corner. The entire village awakens through many small movements rather than one great beginning. Near a shallow inlet, several fishermen are pulling their boat onto the bank. The boat itself is simple. Its wood has darkened through years of sun and water. One side bears a smooth patch where repairs were made many seasons ago. The patch is almost invisible now. Time has blended it into the rest of the boat. The men unload woven baskets one at a time. Fish glisten softly inside them. Some will remain in the village. Others will be carried to nearby settlements along dusty roads that follow the river. Trade begins with ordinary mornings such as this. The father greets one of the fishermen. Was the river kind? The fisherman nods. It was peaceful. No more words are needed. They understand exactly what that means. Not every day brings a large catch. Sometimes the greatest gift is simply a calm river and safe passage home. The father continues his walk. He notices tiny flowers growing among patches of grass near the water's edge. Their blossoms are small enough that many people pass without seeing them. Soft white petals. Delicate green stems. They bloom quietly beneath the larger plants, asking for no attention. A bee visits one blossom, then another. Its gentle humming fades as it drifts toward the reeds. The morning grows warmer. Not hot. Only pleasantly warm. The breeze still carries enough coolness from the Nile to make walking comfortable. He is grateful for these early hours. The heavier work of the day becomes easier when begun before the sun stands high overhead. Soon enough, the basket is nearly full once again. The branches lie neatly arranged. The bundle of dry palm stems rests securely beneath them. A few slender twigs fill the empty spaces between the larger pieces. There is little room left. He looks around once more. Not searching with urgency. Simply allowing his eyes to wander over the familiar ground. The acacia trees. The reeds moving softly in the breeze. The quiet water brushing against the shore. The footprints of birds crossing the damp sand. Everything feels peaceful. Everything feels exactly as it should. He takes one long, slow breath. The scent of the river fills the cool morning air. Then, with the basket resting comfortably upon his shoulder, he turns toward the village, following the familiar path home while the Nile continues its endless journey beside him, calm, steady, and unhurried beneath the brightening Egyptian sky. The familiar path leads quietly back toward the village. The father walks without haste, allowing the weight of the basket to settle naturally against his shoulder. Each step presses softly into the dusty earth. His sandals leave fresh prints beside many others that were made earlier in the morning by neighbors carrying water, fishermen heading toward the river, and children sent to gather small bundles of reeds. The path curves gently around a broad stand of papyrus. Tall green stalks rise above his shoulders, their feathery tops moving almost silently in the breeze. Sunlight filters through them in thin golden lines, painting quiet patterns across the ground. For a few moments he slows his pace. The breeze here is cooler. The damp soil beneath the papyrus still holds the night's freshness, and the scent of clean water rises softly from the shaded earth. A dragonfly hovers above a narrow pool left behind when the river slowly withdrew many weeks before. Its wings shimmer like thin sheets of glass. It pauses in the air, then darts away so smoothly that it seems carried by the breeze itself. The father watches only long enough to enjoy the quiet movement before continuing home. Ahead, the first voices of the village become easier to hear. A woman calls gently to her children. Somewhere a donkey answers with a low, familiar sound. A wooden gate closes softly. The steady scraping of a broom moves across a courtyard floor. None of the sounds disturb the morning. Together they create the peaceful rhythm of another ordinary day. As he approaches the first houses, the smell of baking bread becomes richer. The clay ovens have now grown fully warm. Fresh loaves rest inside them, slowly browning against the heated walls. The scent drifts through the narrow lanes, mixing with the fragrance of wood smoke, crushed herbs, and damp clay that still cools the water jars standing in shaded corners. An elderly baker sits beside one of the larger village ovens. He has already finished shaping the morning's dough. Now he simply watches the fire. His eyes have learned to read its colors through many decades. Bright orange flames. Deep red coals. Pale gray ash. Each tells him something different. He adds only one small piece of wood. No more is needed. A gentle fire bakes more evenly than a fierce one. The father nods politely as he passes. The baker returns the greeting with flour still clinging to his hands. Nearby, a young girl carries a small basket filled with onions. She walks carefully, holding the basket with both hands. Each step is thoughtful. The onions roll softly against one another with every movement. When she reaches her home, she kneels beside the doorway and arranges them neatly inside a woven tray where the air can move freely around them. Even storing food has its own quiet rhythm. Nothing is thrown carelessly into a corner. Everything is placed where it will remain useful. The father enters his own courtyard. His wife looks up from the clay oven just as he steps inside. She notices the full basket immediately. Her smile is small but warm. The morning has been kind. Without speaking, they begin unloading the wood together. Long branches are stacked beneath the shelter of the roof. The thinner pieces are placed beside the oven where they will be easy to reach throughout the day. Dry palm stems are tied into another neat bundle. Tiny twigs are gathered into a clay jar to keep them dry until morning. The youngest child watches closely. He has finished rubbing the sleep from his eyes and now follows every movement with quiet curiosity. His father picks up one small branch. This one is for starting the fire. He places it gently into the child's hands. The little boy studies it carefully. It feels surprisingly light. He carries it proudly to the clay jar, placing it inside with great care. His parents exchange a quiet smile. One day the child will gather branches of his own. For now, carrying even a single stick feels important. The morning sun rises higher. Its warmth begins reaching into the courtyard despite the shade offered by the walls. The family finishes storing the wood before the heat grows stronger. The basket is turned upside down once more. A few grains of sand tumble onto the ground. One tiny feather, trapped among the branches during the walk home, floats gently through the air before landing beside the oven. The youngest child picks it up. He runs his fingers softly along its smooth edge. Then he tucks it carefully behind a crack in the mudbrick wall, adding it to a small collection of treasures gathered over many mornings. A polished pebble. A smooth shell carried inland by the flood. A twisted seed pod. A feather from a river bird. Simple things become precious through careful attention. Across the lane, another family begins grinding grain. The slow scrape of stone against stone rises into the warm air. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The rhythm continues without interruption. The woman grinding the flour leans steadily over the flat stone. Her hands know exactly how much pressure to use. Nearby, her daughter waits with an empty clay bowl. Fine flour gathers little by little. No one watches the passing of time. The work itself becomes the measure of the morning. At the edge of the village, a carpenter lifts a length of imported cedar from its resting place. The wood is precious. Its scent is unlike that of local trees. Rich and warm. He pauses for a moment simply to admire its smooth grain before marking a careful line with a piece of charcoal. Nothing is cut until every measurement feels right. A mistake cannot easily be undone. The father washes his hands beside a large clay jar. The cool water slips across skin roughened by years of labor. Dust from the riverbank disappears into the packed earth beneath his feet. He dries his hands on a linen cloth hanging beside the doorway. The cloth carries the fresh smell of sunlight after drying outside the day before. His wife places another loaf of bread beside the first. Both are wrapped loosely in clean linen to keep them warm. Steam escapes gently from beneath the cloth. The scent fills the courtyard. Soon the children gather nearby once again. Not because anyone calls them. Simply because warm bread has a way of bringing everyone together. The father tears a small piece from one loaf. He offers it first to the youngest child. The little boy accepts it with both hands. The bread is still almost too warm to hold comfortably. He smiles. The simple gift feels special every morning. Beyond the courtyard walls, the village continues its peaceful awakening. Potters shape fresh clay. Weavers guide threads through upright looms. Boat builders tighten bundles of reeds. Fishermen rinse their nets before hanging them to dry. Scribes unroll papyrus beneath shaded porches. Water carriers return from the river with balanced jars. And all around them, the Nile flows with the same quiet certainty it has always known, accompanying every ordinary task with its endless, gentle song as another calm day unfolds beneath the warm Egyptian sun. Before the final words are spoken, the day has already become evening once more. The sun has slipped slowly toward the western desert, leaving behind a sky washed with gentle shades of amber, rose, and fading gold. The warm light rests upon the quiet waters of the Nile, where small ripples carry the colors downstream until they slowly disappear into the growing dusk. The village settles into its familiar rhythm. Cooking fires glow softly inside sheltered courtyards. The scent of fresh bread drifts through the narrow lanes one last time. Children, tired from a day filled with simple discoveries, rest against their parents with heavy eyes. The fishermen have tied their boats securely to the riverbank. The farmers have laid aside their tools. The scribes have rolled their papyrus closed. The potters have covered their cooling vessels. The weavers have left their looms waiting patiently for tomorrow's light. Nothing feels unfinished. There is comfort in knowing that not every task must be completed in a single day. The father steps quietly into the courtyard. The bundle of firewood gathered along the Nile rests neatly beneath the roof, a little smaller now than it was at sunrise. Much of it has already become gentle warmth, fresh bread, and the evening meal shared with those he loves. He places one final branch upon the glowing coals. The wood catches slowly. A soft crackle rises into the peaceful night. Tiny sparks drift upward, disappearing among the first stars. For a long moment, no one speaks. The family simply listens. To the breathing of the fire. To the whisper of the evening breeze. To the distant frogs singing among the reeds. To the quiet river, flowing steadily beyond the village, just as it did yesterday, just as it will tomorrow. Above them, the stars slowly brighten. They shine over the fertile fields, the palm groves, the mudbrick homes, and the endless ribbon of water that has carried life through this valley for countless generations. So much of history is remembered through the names of rulers, towering temples, and monuments carved from stone. Yet the ancient world was also held together by quieter hands. Hands that gathered fallen branches before dawn. Hands that kneaded bread. Hands that mended sandals, tied fishing nets, shaped clay, copied careful lines upon papyrus, and comforted sleepy children at the end of a long day. Most of those names have been carried away by time. But their ordinary lives remain gently woven into the story of the Nile. Every loaf that baked in a clay oven. Every basket filled with dry wood. Every careful step along the riverbank. Every quiet evening beside a patient fire. These simple moments became the true rhythm of ancient Egypt. The night grows deeper. The fire settles into glowing embers beneath a blanket of soft gray ash. The last bird calls from a distant palm before becoming silent. The breeze grows cooler. The reeds sway gently along the water's edge. The Nile continues its endless journey beneath the stars, asking for nothing, hurrying nowhere, carrying moonlight upon its calm surface as it has for thousands upon thousands of peaceful nights. The family drifts into sleep. The village follows. One by one, every lamp is extinguished. Every doorway grows quiet. Every woven mat welcomes another tired soul. Only the river remains awake, keeping its gentle watch through the darkness. And as the ancient valley rests beneath the wide Egyptian sky, the soft murmur of flowing water, the fading warmth of the evening fire, and the quiet memory of ordinary lives slowly dissolve into stillness. May the peaceful banks of the Nile grow softer with every breath. May the warm desert breeze become lighter. May the gentle current carry every lingering thought downstream. And may the calm of this ancient night remain with you, as the stars shine quietly overhead, and history, at last, fades into silence.